各位观众朋友们，大家好，欢迎收看 JxJ 论坛，由我 Jimmy 马健与我们的好朋友 Jim Noteware 为我们一起讨论这个礼拜的时事。Jim, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I think the rest of the world is all confused, but I'm doing fine.
The rest of the world is confused. Well, we're finally getting fall weather here in Houston. Temperature dropped. We miss it. You know, this cold front is good for us.
The first day that I'm wearing a sweater this year. So, yes.
That's right. Long sleeve, you're right.
But I have some exciting news to report.
I would love to hear it.
My daughter-in-law gave birth last night at about 11 o'clock to our first grandchild.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So thank you. Thank you.
First time grandpa. Well, this boy or girl?
Girl.
You got a baby girl, grandchild, grandbaby. Well, I mean, you're going to spoil her on. I mean, that's what you're here for.
Oh, yeah. That's easy. I can already feel it. So, yeah, it's going to happen.
Congratulations. Wow, this is big news. Mom and baby are both safe and healthy.
And happy and healthy, and anything couldn't be better. Got some pictures. And my son tried to connect me today by Facebook, but he did it in the middle of another meeting, so I couldn't take it. But we'll deal with that tonight. There'll be a lot of nights.
You definitely have a lot of meetings every day, a lot of work. But congratulations! It's a big addition, new addition to the family. Is always a good time, joyous time, and you're a very young grandpa. So
yeah,
the first of many. I hope bigger family, better.
First of many, yeah. I just got to convince all my daughters now to get underway.
You know, we were discussing this among some friends. A lot of countries in Asia are giving bonuses, cash, large amounts of cash to encourage young people to have children.
Mm-hmm.
I have 3, so I mean, I understand why. I also understand why it's hard to have children. With the millennials or whatever next generation is, it's hard, right? With real estate prices, with it. I mean, it's a whole deep-rooted issue that's related to the whole society. But I know in Singapore, Japan, Taiwan, they give large cash bonuses, encourage a baby, and a lot of work excused absences for both parents to help. You know, it's very advanced. But because those societies are dying, we discussed this briefly before.
Yeah, we have. My wife was looking into this one time, and she was reading the New York Times, and she said, "Did you know that 1 out of 5 adult children are now living with their parents?" And I said, "Well, I've heard something about that." And she said, "Aren't you glad we stopped at 4?
That's a good one. Well, aren't you glad that you had them early? That's true.
Well, actually, about midway, but yes. I'm very glad that we are where we are.
I don't know if everyone understood that joke, but yes, that 20% or the last 20%, you know, the last one would be. But you know, as my kids get, I mean, they're young, they're 12, 8, and 4. My wife had this discussion with me. I'm saying, you know, as a man, they need to go out and explore the world. And I feel like, you know, they only have 18 years at home and then they go to college, they move on. And she told me something that I never thought about because, you know, we grew up this way. She said, why? I wanted to stay home forever. They're my babies. I'm like, no, you don't. You're saying that now. But I mean, it's not just for us. I get it. You want to see the kids, but you want them to grow up and get out and be independent. I left home when I was 17 and never went back again. I mean, I went home to visit, but moved out at 17.
Sure.
I think in this American way, I think for Asians, for Chinese, a lot of people live together with parents. Nothing wrong with that, you know, if you could afford to. I mean, big house, you know, or estate, or if you can't afford it, you have to live together economically. That's fine too. It's just how you deal with it, right? I mean, here we have cheap land and lots of space. So if you want to be somewhere else, you can be.
Yeah, I don't know why more people don't move. I mean, a lot of people are moving to Texas. I'm surprised more people don't, because we have two, especially in Houston, we have 2 great big things that everybody else wants. One is lots of open land. We can develop forever. And 2, we have plenty of water. Most everywhere else in the world, including most parts of the United States, are having trouble with water. We have more than we can deal with. And we don't deal with it very well when we get it. So we have a lot to learn, but But anyway,
I mean, that relates to what our president is doing right now at the conference right now.
Oh, he came home last night. Yesterday.
Yeah. So he criticized Russia and China. It seems that if you cannot get them to join, what's the point?
Yeah.
Some more political pressure or whatever it is that needs to be done. It's been an eventful week. I'm still recovering from Tuesday, heartbreaking loss, Astros. I'm not even a big baseball fan, but as a Houstonian, we root for our teams. And I told my kids, since I was a child, the last time we were good was 25 years ago, Jeff Bagwell, up until 2017. So over 25 years, you wait around. Shoot, you never know when the next time your team could go to World Series,
No.
So we cherish it. We root for our team, and it was heartbreaking. It was the way. It was. I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, but after Game 6, you had to admit that the Braves were a much better team. They won both by much better pitching and much better hitting. We were the last couple of games. The exception was Game 5, but other than that, in Game 1, we were
dominated.
Down.
We were dominated. Yeah. This entire series were dominated, and it never felt good. It never felt like we could pull out. We could score though, so it was very disheartening to see everyone getting cold, all at the same time. Manager had a part to play, but either way, we congratulate them for a wonderful ride. I tell my kids, hey,
they went a long way. They went right to the end, so they went as well as everybody but one other team.
And 5 years in a row we had a chance, and we did win one. So we hope Astros can regroup and reload and redevelop. The last time we rebuilt it took 20 years. So let's hope it's a little bit shorter this time. It'll take 10 years for the Rocks to get good again, if we ever get good. The Texans are in complete rebuild mode. Astros were our only hope. So speaking of which, the Rocket stuff, I'll talk to you later about it. I'm still waiting on the official reply. Now, this week, Astros weather, but very importantly, it's Tuesday election results came in. Houston, we didn't have much to report. Congratulate Ann Sung. She made it to the runoff against her well-funded, non-experienced opponent that has nothing to do with education, but she's in the runoff. Low turnout. This kind of elections have low turnout. Whoever can get people to go out and vote usually wins. Whether they're the best candidate or not, we do not know. But we know Ann Sung is the best candidate. So go out there and vote in December if you can. But you reminded me, Jim, that this week the biggest news is pertaining especially to Asian Americans would be Michelle Wu's historic win in Boston for mayor. How many years was it that were the mayor's 167 years? That was all male and all Caucasian.
Yeah, well, Boston is one of the oldest cities in the U.S., perhaps the oldest, even before they were defined as cities. Just given its location and given its demography over the years, it's been like Houston is a mecca for Asian immigration. Boston has always been a mecca for various forms of, or various people from various parts of Europe, primarily Italy and Ireland, but also other places as well.
The demographics, how do I say it this way? I understand where you're coming from. Yes, I actually know, I have good friends in Boston. Boston is a big part of American culture. The way Bostonians, the Boston accent is a class of its own. It's very different from New York accent. Bostonians are just different, right? Their movies made just about, how they are. But I can tell you right now, my Boston friend tells me this. Boston has always been an international city. You're absolutely right. But there's a lot of Asian immigrants there too. Okay, because of education.
Well, I think that's the case everywhere.
High income. They're not like Baltimore.
Are moving around. Do you know the city that has the second largest Hispanic population?
I would think LA or Houston.
After San Antonio? No, it's Chicago.
Oh wow, Chicago? Well, that's surprising. I would think LA or Houston.
It's been that way for a long time. So the demographic trends will surprise people from time to time.
But this is also, we have to study it because we know that it will affect our leaders of the next generation.
Right.
Now, for me, I looked at it and said, the demographics in Boston is not like minorities elected her. The majority of voters are still Caucasian, still high income. The key is high education, high income. Okay,
that's what I take out of this. Obviously, it's a very, very big milestone for Asian Americans and for Michelle Wu personally. But what I took out of it is how strong a business plank she has. She is not like many of the other either establishment white people or maybe other minorities that are on the far left and want to give everything away. She's all about doing things fairly, doing things economically, doing things on a balanced basis. I didn't know much about her until the media started covering that Boston race and, of course, the results. And from what I've seen, she sounds very important and very refreshing and very favorable. And I think that makes the point you were making, Jimmy, that she's not behaving like an Asian American. She's behaving like an American. And what that tells me is she and others have become part of the mainstream and been totally assimilated. And
Jim, I understand where you're coming from. So I guess let me tell our audience, let me put it in the way that the audience could probably be more receptive. What you're saying is that she is American. Asian Americans are American. She doesn't need to assimilate because she's born and raised here. She is as American as me, you, or anybody else.
Sure.
She doesn't need to behave any other way. She could still behave in an Asian way, her heritage and culture, and be proud of it.
Sure.
But her background is very strong. She could be successful in any field she goes to. Let me explain to you, and our audience would agree, the dilemma of being Asian American. We're immigrants. Immigrant families come here without any ties, any roots, usually without anything. So the first most important things for kids is to study hard, get a good education, and get a high income, a stable, safe industry. Okay, politics is not. You're not from here. You already feel excluded, right? Because the mindset for most mainstream is, oh, you look different. You need to assimilate. You are not American enough. I mean, you feel that way. Whether it's true or not doesn't matter. Immigrants feel that way. So parents don't want kids to go in politics because as you don't know anyone, you don't have the economic, you need to be rich and you need to know a lot of people, which is the common misconception. And to be honest, Asian Americans are usually the best candidates. And let me explain to you why. We don't have the racial, this is very hard to say, but a lot of people will not agree. I mean, would not say it out loud. We do not have the racial baggage. We're neither white or black. We do not have the original sin. Okay? I don't know if you understand what I'm saying here. When it's very easy to be labeled. If you're a Caucasian and you're running and you're going to be labeled, or if you're African American or Hispanic, you could. There's a lot of things. We are immigrants. We came here 1 generation, 2 generations, highly educated, usually high income, but came from nothing. So we understand both sides, left or right. And like you said, most of us are business owners because you couldn't get in corporations back then. You have to start in business. So we know the hardships. We know the tax issues. That's why you could get both. But like I said, you don't see a lot because it's not encouraged. I mean, my parents never told me this, but I understand why. You want to be a doctor, a lawyer, or a real estate developer. Because it's stable, it's safe. You can provide for your family. Politics, you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, there's no sure thing. And also, there's a lot of scrutiny, but you're serving the people. You ran for multiple office. The mentality has to be correct, which is you're serving the people. You're running for office for the common good, to change things, to bring positive things to more people, whether you agree with them or not. And that's the right mindset. See, I mean, out of everyone, you should know this the best. Now, why did you say Michelle Wu's, how do I say this? What was it that strike out for you about her? Maybe because she's highly educated. I mean, that always is a plus. What was it about business? Because I did not look into it. So I'm relying on your advice. What did she say that made you think that she understood that economic and business growth is important too?
Well, I sent you an article this morning that had a lot of that content in there. And one of the things
I couldn't log in. I didn't have a password. Sorry.
Okay, maybe you couldn't. Sometimes you can't get these. You can't open them. But she wants to eliminate things like rent control. She wants to eliminate things like permanently or extended rent moratoriums. She wants to dramatically reduce Boston's regulation of land use, development, and planning. She talks openly about the free market. And so I think for a politician, particularly in a very, very liberal city like Boston is, I used to do a lot of work there. And for someone who was a lawyer, lawyers typically like regulation because it puts them right in front and center. I thought that's a very open, and she's very young. She's only 35.
She's 35. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. He's 35. Yeah. She's just turned 36, but yes, she's very young.
So she's very accomplished for what she's been able to attain. And Boston is, like you said, it's an old
city.
The
oldest.
Yeah, the Boston Brahmins. That means the old white establishment, and even conservative Republicans over the years in Boston are quite liberal by national standards. So anyway, I just thought the whole thing was a great move forward, and for her personally, for Asians, and most importantly for the other citizens of Boston. They're going to get a very good leader here, and she has a long time ahead of her. That's even better.
I really, I get goosebumps thinking about it. I cannot imagine a city like Boston. I'm born and raised in Houston. I know Boston's history. It's very deep-rooted. The powers to be are going to be Catholic. It's going to be Irish and Italians.
Yeah.
That's always been, because that's what the voters, the powers.
Yeah. Yeah.
This progressive coalition. So what Michelle represents is a bridge, is that you don't have to be out, you could be a moderate. You could think for both. You could have a better future for everyone and not extreme right or left. Because she not only did she win, it's the fact that she won by such a wide margin that really pleased me. I mean, she dominated.
Yeah. And she beat, I think there were all four finalists, including the two in the runoff, were women.
And of color.
Yeah, and I think the other three were black. I don't remember that for sure. I know two of the four.
Two of them were African American, yes, sir.
Yeah, but I think
maybe Latino last name. But either way, you're right. I mean, it's a good change. It's all been. I mean, I hope. Yeah. Houston. Texas, we're more conservative. We're always a little slower to change. But remember, we cannot change for the sake of change. Michelle said it very well. Yeah. You could have progress, you can have, but not at the expense of keeping the lights on or at the expense of having electricity. You can have both, but you cannot. It needs to come in due time, Yeah.
You said something just right now that I think is interesting. You said we're here in Texas, we're slower to change. I think that's true in politics, but I don't think it's true at all in business.
Oh, no, not business. You're right.
And I think Houston's and Texas is generally low regulation, low tax, free market orientation. Means business changes here faster. I mean, for all of my adult life, people have respected all across the country in the real estate business have respected people from Texas more than any place else. Houston and Dallas are, from a real estate development perspective, are like Silicon Valley is to hardware and software.
Absolutely. You're right. When I say change, we're slow to change. Business, we're very nimble. We believe in a small government, believe in less regulations. We believe in business-friendly, low taxes, family-friendly. That's why people can afford to live here, have a good life.
Yeah.
But then, you see, that's what I said, we're slow to, how do I say this, political change, because when we say change, usually it means against an establishment. Mm-hmm. And in bigger cities, especially on the East Coast or West Coast, a lot of time means a progressive agenda. You also higher taxes to pay for these agendas, right? To get them to vote for you and to pay for these. And I mean, I'm not saying it's bad or right or wrong. I'm saying that's, it has to be that way. So how do you get both? How do you have change and have minorities, have women and take care of the infirm, but still be able to generate your taxes? And and have a welcome environment for business to grow and prosper. Because you have to have businesses to prosper for the city to fail.
Yeah. Who's going to contribute? Who's going to make the wealth that can be taxed in order to provide the benefits that somebody else wants?
And white flight actually hurts inner city minorities more than anything else, because white flight, everyone moves to the suburbs or gated community.
Because then you abandon.
That's right.
Then you abandon, and I see that happening even in Houston.
We talked about it a few months ago. I was surprised. I didn't know that even in Houston. Because for me, if I didn't have kids, I'd rather live in the city. A lot of my friends grew up in the suburbs, but a lot of us moved back. Most of my friends live inside the loop now. Mm-hmm. More convenient, smaller houses, more expensive, but it's a better lifestyle,
Well, that's what happens. It's more expensive, but it's worth it.
So when you say white flight, I was surprised because I look at in Sugar Land where I grew up.
Yeah.
Corbin County is the most diverse county in the United States. Sugar Land. Okay. Mm-hmm. So we're looking at literally my cul-de-sac represents Houston. We have 10 houses on my cul-de-sac in Sugar Land. Okay. Mm-hmm. And it's a pretty affluent area. Mm-hmm. We have, out of the 10, 3 are South Asian American, Indian, Pakistani. Mm-hmm. 3 were East Asian, Korean, Hong Kong, Chinese like us. Mm-hmm. 3. There were 3 Caucasian. Out of the 3 Caucasian, 1 is from Wisconsin, 1 is Russian American, 1 is from Ohio. None of them is from here. And then we have the 10th house that is empty for sale. So that one house will break the balance.
Well, that shows vacancy. That shows extra capacity in the marketplace. So
the empty houses, because our neighborhood sells fast. They just put on market, and actually I stand correct. It sold already within 3 days.
Well, good.
So their kids grew up. They moved away, but want to keep the house. They don't want to sell it for a while, for a year.
Good.
Yeah, that house sold quick, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're in Avalon, so it's we have water, we have lakes, so Clemens is the best. How do I say this? It's the highest rated public school in Houston. Belair High and Clemens. So everyone wants to be zoned here. So the dilemma is you have to live where the schools are good, or
you do,
or we could be like you, which we should do another episode about of how to raise kids and have them be successful, even though we think HISD. It's still a good school. You just have to be able to go in there, and the parents are the most important thing. You could send the kids to the best school, but the parents are not doing their part. It's not going to matter. So.
Right.
So Jim, how do we come up with this? Okay, so the demographics. Okay, white flight.
Yeah. But now in many cities, you're having black flight. We've talked about that before. Washington, D.C., the black middle class moved out over the last 30 years to Prince George's County. Houston has a lot of that now, too. San Francisco, a lot of people have moved. They've taken the money that they've sold their houses and moved to Phoenix. It's literally all over. And I think a lot of that is just the sheer mismanagement of major cities. There's no question that big cities, particularly dense cities, demographically and physically dense cities, are far more complex to manage because they have interrelationships. And they tend to be highly regulated, which is in part a function of the density. But very few places have succeeded at it. And frankly, and I lay a lot of blame to, every place has elected Democrat mayors and Democrat machines. So you kind of get what you have, but it's not that simple. It's
I'm not disagreeing with this at all. This is because these are facts. We see it, the decay.
Cities are very
different, and the government, the bog down. It's disheartening. We talked about it before. San Francisco is unlivable.
And then back to Boston for a moment. It's been known to have a big political Democrat machine, like New York or San Francisco or Chicago. Very similar in many ways. But anyway,
it's my brother-in-law and his girlfriend is going to Chicago for the first time tomorrow for a quick trip. They're young, they're in college. Mm-hmm. Before I would tell them, hey, go eat here, or, recommend and look at the nice view. Chicago has a beautiful downtown. lots of nice bars, lots of good food. You can look at the river and look at the lake. Instead of all that, my first thing that came to mind is, hey, please don't wander around downtown at night. Even though they're staying at JW, very nice hotel, don't wander around at night. Don't even Uber. It's sad that it comes down to this. It's that bad. It is that bad. I have friends in Chicago. It is that bad. It is bad because they're in downtown. They're in the urban center. They're not in the suburbs of Chicago. When we go to San Francisco, same thing. Don't put valuables in the car. Don't leave the windows down because it's going to get broken. You might as well leave the windows down and let them take things. Could you imagine that? Orange County, Irvine, LA is bad. Oh, it's Jim.
I think some of the results of yesterday's elections, in the local elections, Minneapolis and Seattle, give us some confidence that maybe we've reached the bottom on
Virginia,
this, and people are starting to turn around.
You cannot. Well, either way, you cannot swing too far to the left or north swing too far to the right. It has to swing back.
I'd like to believe that we have center-seeking judgment on our collective decision making. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Hey, Jimmy, I'm going to have to.
Thank you, Jim. Yes, I was going to say perfect. We'll see you next week. Okay.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Take care.
Bye bye.
大家拜拜，晚安。